Welcome back at 7:44. Two candidates in the race for governor try to win over voters with less than 3 weeks left before the election. Stephen Waguespack and Sean Wilson shared their vision for the future of the state in a debate hosted by Fox 8. Fox 8 political analyst Mike Sherman joins us now to break it all down. Hey, how are you?
Good to be here. It was a good civil night with a deep policy discussion.
Right. It seemed like there were a lot of topics that were discussed, and obviously these two gentlemen on either sides of a lot of these issues. But like you said, it was civil. What did you take away from it?
Listen, I think one of the first tests when you look at a gubernatorial debate is, do the folks have the chops to be governor? I think both candidates last night passed the leadership test. Both had deep philosophical principles, different principles on how they would govern. I think you saw differences between a conservative Democrat and kind of a fiscally conservative Republican on display last night. So there was definitely a choice for voters to make. And then, of course, the person not on the stage, Attorney General Jeff Landry.
You see two people that come from really the previous two administrations of Sean Wilson under John Bel Edwards and Waguespack with his time in the Jindal administration there. So, I mean, does that rubric of what happened during those terms kind of give folks an idea of what these guys would potentially govern as, or do they potentially go beyond that?
Yeah, so I think the choice actually, it's a great question. The choice isn't as simple. If you like the Jindal administration, vote for Waguespack. If you like the John Bel Edwards administration, vote for Wilson. I think to some extent, Sean Wilson being the transportation secretary for most of Governor Edwards' term until he decided to run for governor, that if you like what you see and you want more of it, vote for Sean Wilson. But actually, I think all candidates have acknowledged this is a change election. Mm-hmm. 2/3 of the voters in this state I think we're heading in the wrong direction. So all of these candidates are picking up, I'm going to lead Louisiana in a different direction. I think they had different views on how they would do that.
And that said, you know, there are other candidates on the ballot. The front runner in our poll, wasn't there last night. He walks away clean from this debate that he didn't even walk into, right?
Well, I've gotten asked this question a lot of times, and I hate it. I love debates. I love political discourse. I think that's how voters get the best information. I think for these two candidates were there, they got to share their views. But at the end of the day, campaigns are about winning. And with Jeff Landry in a dominant front-runner position, he saw no advantage to going last night. It's probably not bad strategy. It would risk two things: elevating his opponents and also the potential to make a gaffe, which actually probably seems a little less important nowadays in politics. A singular gaffe doesn't change the outcome. But I hate it. I wish everyone was on stage, but I certainly understand the strategy. It's probably a thoughtful strategy.
So his idea, even if he's there, even if he's not worried about the gaffe, is the idea that, more eyes are on the debate. If he's there, that elevates his opponents as he goes in. When you look at this upcoming election, which early voting begins this weekend, you've got multiple things that can happen. What do either Waguespack or Sean Wilson need to do to make it into that runoff?
Very different strategies here. Okay, for Sean Wilson, he's not yet polling where a generic Democrat could poll. So if he can get that Democratic base energized and voting for him, he should end up somewhere north of 35, almost 40% as a Democrat in a statewide election in Louisiana. You do a little better, you can get a little above that. You do a little worse, you do a little below that. For Waguespack, with the number of voters already committed to Attorney General Landry in public opinion polls and nothing really changing the dynamic of the race, he's got to put together an interesting coalition. The final few minutes of the debate, Stephen Waguespack said, hey, Democrats, I can win this thing. If you don't want Jeff Landry, vote for me, Stephen Waguespack. It was an appeal probably late in the game to do, but it's kind of an acknowledgement that he's having trouble putting together a coalition of voters that can get him into a runoff.
It's kind of an unorthodox strategy, but the times that we live in, with the fact that the front runner isn't at the debate, that seems unorthodox as well. So we potentially...
We live in unorthodox political times. There's a Republican presidential debate, and Donald Trump didn't show up. So, I don't know, is Jeff Landry taking a page out of that playbook?
We'll see. All right. Early voting begins this weekend.
This weekend, go out and vote early. Early voting is going to be upwards of a quarter of this election.
How about that? All right. Well, we'll be tracking it all for you. Thanks, as always. We appreciate it.